And yeah, the whole process was very confronting. And in her sweetness and in her voice, I was able to track something in my own system. And I knew, I was like, wait, hold on. Okay, stop. And I just asked everybody to clear the room. I needed to be alone. I knew it. And I just prayed with all of my might to everything that is holy. Please show me another way. 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 And in just 5 or 6 minutes, I entered into a deeply transcendent state of consciousness, came so deeply into my body. It was not an up and out of my body experience. It was like I had never been in my body that deeply. I'd never welcomed myself into the sanctuary of my body that deeply, in that sincerity, in that desire to know something greater than I could understand. And I knew that's what I was reaching for, but I had.
Welcome to the Embodied Mystic podcast, where we explore the path of feminine awakening and luscious womanhood. Together, we'll be diving into topics like sacred sexuality, feminine embodiment, spiritual healing, and soulful relationships. I'm your host, Tamara Fael, tantric mentor and Aries hype girl, here to guide you back to the temple of your body and fall in love with being a woman. I look forward to journeying together. Welcome, Sarah, onto the Embodied Mystic podcast. I'm so happy that we're finally having this conversation about spirit babies.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay. Oh my gosh, we were just having the juiciest chat about spirit communication. Oh my God, we were getting into all these things, and I was like, okay, let's just go. I need to stop saying this off air. Yeah. So Sarah, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. And yeah, I'm really curious just to hear a little bit about, like, how did you get into spirit baby communication? Is this something that you've always had a gift for?
Yeah. I mean, it's the question, right? It's like these journeys of arrival and coming to know ourselves. And yeah, I think what's true for me is that as a child, I often would hear voices in the middle of the night or see the outlines of figures. Or I remember driving through a canyon as a child, preteen, a canyon that was close to my home. We were driving through this beautiful, like, little stream and wooded area. And I remember looking out the window, just daydreaming a bit, and then glancing over and seeing a little boy in his gray tunic or like cotton nightgown that was ripped. And his skin was pale white. And all of his features, his brown hair, his brown eyes, it was almost as if I was given this vision to zoom in and see all the details, but understanding that I was simultaneously still sitting in the car far away. And I was afraid. I remember feeling afraid to make eye contact because I knew in every bone of my being that this body was and wasn't here. But it was the most flesh I had seen in that way, or what appeared to be flesh. It wasn't just a figure. It wasn't an outline. It was like, you're real. It's real. It's real. And many years later, I was a camp counselor in the woods. And I remember going to bed and all the girls asleep in the cabin. I was tucking into my little my little sleeping bag, and I remember laying back. We were deep in the mountains, and I remember laying back and opening my eyes and being like like thinking, what? Like I just fell through some dimensional portal, not understanding. I didn't have those words at the time, but as I very mundane moment, just going to bed here, and like woke up, didn't wake up because I wasn't asleep, but just kind of woke up woke up to, oh my God, there every speck of space was a spirit. It's like walking through what felt like the land of the dead and the land of the living, but it wasn't creepy or gory. It was just, the space was so compacted, and my consciousness was so able to articulate the beings that were present. And it's interesting. It's like, why the canyon? Why at that age? Why in that moment? Why the campground? Why then? Why, and we can have these questions. And to be honest, I didn't have any answers, and I didn't know anybody I could speak to about this. So I just didn't speak to anybody about it. And just really tried to erase it from my mind as best I could, or just try to stay like really disconnected from it as best I could. But it was shortly after that experience as a camp counselor in the woods where, that really, a doorway opened. And life is intriguing. It never really leads us in the direction we think it's going to. I mean, yes, it does, but oftentimes it doesn't. And so shortly after that experience, I actually conceived a baby. And I would say that conception and pregnancy and birthing my firstborn, my son, was absolutely, I mean, a lot of the times I just start there in the story, because that is what I refer to as the beginning of the end. That sequence, that chapter, that experience, those experiences, everything started to hum and to swirl and to open. And it wasn't just about the spirit world. It was about all of these puzzle pieces showing up through time and space. Like all of a sudden, everything felt familiar. I know this person. I know this place. I know, I know this moment. I know that sound. I know that smell. It was like this very lucid waking chapter. And it was like walking out of a deep slumber and into a dream, but pinching myself all the while and being like, but I'm awake. What's happening? And everything got beautifully slippery. And fortunately, I was in a space with enough support that I could be present to some of that, although I won't lie, it scared me. Felt we often wonder if other people are having leg cramps, let alone seeing their dead grandmother sitting on the sofa next to them when they're pregnant, and realizing that your due date is her birthday, and you're like, hi, like leg cramps, and so still, it wasn't like I was going to prenatal yoga and being like, anybody else hanging out with their dead grandmother, and so it was a real really interesting time where the veils were thin. And I thought, I didn't know what I thought. I think I was just like, okay, what do you do with that? And actually I was having a lot of anxiety, heart palpitations.
So much to go through.
Yeah.
You're pregnant for the first time.
Yeah. Wow. Definitely. And even the dream time was very lucid, going through archives and past lives and repairing DNA. I mean, really, I thought yoga was kind of cool. I thought maybe I should start eating some dark greens. What are those? Like, I was not on this path, as some may say.
Like, what's kale?
Yeah, no, literally. Literally, I didn't know. My roommate, because I was so young, I was 20, she took me to Whole Foods and like gave me an orientation to the organic vegetable produce section. I was like, I had no idea.
Whole Foods is the best. One of my favorite things about the US. On a side note.
Side note. Yeah. So, you know, yeah, it really is interesting in that it's like, are we are we the dreamers? Are we the weavers? Or are we being woven and dreamt into being? And I can just say that for me, that's when it all started to shift. Like not my conscious awareness of it all and under being able to understand it all, but looking back, that's when I gave way to the story of my life writing me. And yeah, and so in that, I didn't understand it. I didn't have a lot of understanding, but I, fortunately, something I'm really grateful for is that I had a lot of sincerity and I had a lot of naivete, really. And that ended up being such an ally to me because it wasn't about me. It wasn't even about the phenomenon. It was just what was, and I was just watching it. And honestly, I was so afraid of giving birth that I just wanted to survive it. And in my desire to survive it, and because of all of these angels showing up and this familiarity kind of seeping through the cracks of everything that was happening in my world, one thing led to another, and being kind of, I felt very like passed on from angel to angel. And each angel I met along the pregnancy would share like a little pearl with me or a little piece of wisdom with me. And because I was naive and sincere in my desire to have a positive experience with something I felt so afraid of, it was just a bit of alchemy. It just created this kind of alchemical cauldron for me to deeply explore consciousness. But I didn't know that's what was happening. I didn't know that that's what I was preparing for. And so the birth itself ended up being a 4-hour journey in which the first 3 hours I was spent in utter writhing pain and fear and complete contraction of the entire experience being a complete betrayal of the divine feminine. And like, I couldn't use those words at the time, but I was thinking to myself, wait, we're supposed to have the design. Like our bodies are supposed to know how to do this. Our mothers did this and their mothers did this and their mothers did this. Like, what the fuck is this? This is awful. This cannot be the way we bring babies into the world. This is like this, it feels like it's like purgatory. This is like a living hell. Like this is a nightmare. I can't do it. I can't do it. And one of those angels that ended up coming to the birth was my midwife, and she was so sweet with me. And she's like, oh, it's okay. You're doing so good. And she was just so soft, so gentle with me. And yeah, the whole process was very confronting. And in her sweetness and in her voice, I was able to track something in my own system. And I knew, I was like, wait, hold on. Okay, stop. And I just asked everybody to clear the room. I needed to be alone. I knew it. And I just prayed with all of my might to everything that is holy. Please show me another way. 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 And in just 5 or 6 minutes, I entered into a deeply transcendent state of consciousness, came so deeply into my body. It was not an up and out of my body experience. It was like I had never been in my body that deeply. I'd never welcomed myself into the sanctuary of my body that deeply, in that sincerity, in that desire to know something greater than I could understand. And I knew that's what I was reaching for, but I had no idea if I would be met with anything in return. It was just there, but that there was something in me. There just has to be, because fortunately I'd had some of these experiences, and I'm like, I know the world doesn't work the way we tell ourselves it does. There's more. I know there's more. I just have no clue how any of it works. And like, you've got to help me. Like, you just got to help me. Like whether that I'm talking to myself or some spirit, I was like, I don't know, just help. Yeah, in a few minutes, I was just deep in the sanctuary of my body, extremely peaceful. All of the physical sensation and pain of birth dissolved completely. And in the dissolve, my consciousness actually split and expanded. And part of me, why I say split, is because a part of my consciousness was watching the whole thing, like, what is going on? The other part of me was deep in the sanctuary of my body, completely free, no pain. I would look down, my abdomen, my womb was still contracting, but I didn't have a single physical sensation of discomfort. It was like full spiritual epidural and no pain at all, to the point where like I couldn't even breathe. I was in so much pain, but now it was like gone. And then the other part of my consciousness was just in this wide expanse, completely enamored and in awe of the interconnectivity of all sentient life and consciousness beyond our understanding, and how woven we truly are, and what it is to witness life and the human journey from that lens, in which case many people were starting to appear in my mind's eye and tell me, oh, I'm hurting with this. Oh, I have arthritis. Oh, I don't know how to heal my relationship with my father. And I could say, okay, yep, this. It was like going through all of these files, and I was just watching it like, what is happening? And 40 minutes later was birthing a baby. And that was extraordinary, because I think I can share here in this space, I was delivering the baby and pushed for about 10-15 minutes. But in the middle of pushing, I remember it was a real shift in the progression of things, because it became very physiological again, but I was still very expanded and I was still very present. And while I had more discomfort in this space, it was pressure. It wasn't pain, if that makes sense. It was just like the emergence of a head essentially coming out of my vagina. So it was a moment. But as the head came out, what I was most present to is this massive, massive explosion of golden light in the center of my brain. And it took over my entire sense of self. And my entire brain exploded, and a male voice spoke to me in my ear. You know this in your bones. And it was just like, it echoed and echoed and echoed, and it reverberated out. And I'm just like, ah! Like pushing the baby out and just like, whoa, what's happening? Not scattered, but just like, whoa, whoa. And then the baby was here. They put my son on my chest, and 20 years old. Again, yoga's kind of cool. What's kale? Like, oh my God. Like, you just changed. You just are. You're just changed. And yet I immediately found myself back in the space of like, and who do I share this with? Like, anybody? And I know there has to be others, but I didn't know them. It's like, oh God. Okay. So I call it the beginning of the end. And that was 17 years ago. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story. That is just incredible. I mean, I love hearing about birth. You know, it's not actually the intention of our conversation, but I'm so thrilled we got to hear that story, because that is so magical, and I can so relate to that terror around birth. Like it's something I've felt so terrified of for most of my life. And yeah, also like one of the intentions for these conversations with mothers, to hear about birth and to hear about how the intensity of that experience can be alchemized. I mean, you were so young.
Yeah. And so old. My husband actually walked into the bathroom in that 40-minute period where I was very expanded and not having pain. And I don't remember him walking in. He just set a jug of water down on the floor of the shower that I was in. But he told me later that when he came into the bathroom, I freaked him out because he said I looked like a 90-year-old Hispanic woman. He said I was unrecognizable. And I have no memory of him coming into the room at all.
A 90-year-old Hispanic woman? Wait, what? You literally shapeshifted. Like you were having your cosmic experience and someone else came. Wow.
That makes sense. A little more sense than my 20-year-old self figuring that out.
Gosh. Wow. Okay. So I'm imagining around about that time, you were like, okay, I have a gift.
I I didn't even have that. I didn't even have that understanding. I was like, I have no idea what that
You're
was.
like, I'm weird.
Yeah, yes, that feels more accurate.
Not yet at the gift stage.
No, I was like, I'm insane. What is going on? Yeah, so to be honest, I think what I actually took away from that experience, I was like, I just grounded it into the material, into the physical. I signed up for a doula training. I
Yeah.
got my books together. I utilized the material world to and really set down the depth of that experience because I had to. Like I didn't have the puzzle pieces needed to really unpack it.
Yeah.
I needed the material understanding of like, and I had to walk it way back. Like I said, I was still trying to figure out a lot. So I was like, okay, what's homeopathy? What are pressure points? What is hydrotherapy? What is birth? Like, what are the processes of birth? What are the stages of birth? I don't even know if I had those, and that was the interesting thing. I had been through it, but I remember the first birth I went to, it's like, you just have to go into the shower and pray like your life depends on it. And the sweet Turkish woman was like, I don't want to go in the shower. And I was like, shit, then I have no idea what to tell you. I don't know what's supposed to happen next.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
it makes so much sense that you would want to go and learn about the whole process. Also to like have a measuring stick of like, okay, what happened to me and like what happens to other women?
Yeah.
And like, is it normal?
Yeah.
Like what to do with this crazy experience? Like maybe these other women can support with that.
Yeah, I mean, the echoing of those words, this in your bones, like that for me was also like, I'm going to be working in birth for the rest of my life. I definitely knew that in that moment. I was like, this is my work. And so it actually was, again, setting down the kind of spiritual enormity of that experience, the profundity of that experience, and just going deep into the study of birth for years. And it wasn't until 7, 8, 9 years later that I began publicly sharing my work as a spirit baby intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like where on your path of like being a doula, like when did you start understanding like, okay, spirit babies is the jam for me?
Yeah. Well, I started having visions at people's births. I started having experiences that at a certain point I couldn't deny them anymore. Actually, I tried. I am stubborn, and I just like I couldn't make peace with like this is yeah. I was like, I don't do this. So I can't tell you how many people are like, you do this. I was like, no, I don't. Like, I don't do this. I fought with it a lot. And so anyway, I have lots of compassion for anyone who is, navigating what it is to be opening ourselves up and simultaneously trying to digest and connect with who we are, why we're here, how do we really utilize our gifts, or how do we come into them more fully or more consciously, or how do we harness them? It's quite a process. And I think for everyone it's extremely different. So not to say my journey is anyone else's, but I mean the big moment for me was I was teaching a workshop on it was called Pregnancy: Journey of Transformation. I was on a stage in front of 1,000 women, and I had just read the book Spirit Babies by Walter McKitchen. I literally inhaled it.
Yes.
Loved it, and was like, it was like reading excerpts out of my own diary. It was like, again, familiarity. I was like, I know this. And anyway, I didn't think a ton of it, except I was just so inspired. And I get on stage, and I'm standing on stage. I'm about to introduce myself. And this was really quite a divine intervention, because this angelic presence came out of what felt like the sky, but I'll just say out from above my right shoulder, came into the back of my head and neck and took over my nervous system and spoke through me. I would be teaching spirit baby communication. And I was like, oh, like, because you don't give full control. You still have some control, but I watched the whole thing like, what? No, don't say it. I like threw the microphone. I ran off the stage, and I was just like, what just happened? Like, I can't teach this. I can't teach this. No. And I did. I did. I had to. And that night, as I went to bed, Walter McKitchen came into my dream, literally got out a chalkboard, and all night long was like, all right, this is really good. You expanded beautifully here. Don't forget to talk about this when you bring up this. This needs to be more experiential. That's very important. This is how we're going to evolve it. This is how I'm going to support you. And he just went on and on and on and on and on. And I was just like, oh my God. And the next morning, 3 people came up to me, because it was a weekend with different speakers and such. And 3 people came up to me. They're like, can I have a private reading? And I was like, I don't do those. Like, I don't, and they were like, yeah, well, that's okay. I want one. So I was just like, oh, okay. So then I started doing readings, and really, I'll just keep it there. It's ever since I've never looked back. I've been doing readings ever since that day. I've been teaching spirit baby communication ever since that day. And I can't tell you for years, and even still, how many people are like, I read Walter's book. I found out that he's no longer alive. I did a Google search and I found you. And I'm like, yep. Walter does do that.
Wow.
Good old Walter. Yeah.
What? Did you know him? Like, had you met him in person?
No, my relationship with him has entirely been linked through the spirit realm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I've really struggled, but I've fought it a lot. But now, I mean, that was, sorry to cut you off, but that was 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago now. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It's wild because like the spirit baby communication thing came in for me in 2022, so 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've always like felt this like affinity with motherhood, and I've always felt like I'll be a mother. I'm not yet a mother. And yeah, I don't know, something was going on for me at the end of 2021 where I was like, okay, I just need to like chill with the baby thing for a while. Like, I need to forget about it. Just like live my life, like enjoy my youth. And then, like, in the very early days of January 2022, I woke up one morning, and the feeling I had when I woke up, it was like I woke up with this like gasp, and it felt like my womb was like, it's like it had stopped breathing, and suddenly it was like, and like, what I heard was like, you've got to find baby daddy. Where's baby daddy? And I was like, are you serious? Like,
yes.
and I think it was like a few days later, I came across spirit baby communication for the first time, like this thing. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I need to know what this is. And I don't even remember. It was some honestly, like a random coach that I was somehow connected to, and I think it came through my inbox. I don't even remember who it is now. But she was like holding this workshop on spirit babies, and so I went, and through that I found the book. And it's so wild to hear that you have this spirit connection, you know, with the author of that book, because I've been, yeah, like calling in someone to have this conversation with on the podcast. I also nearly had a reading once with someone, but it like didn't quite work out. So like I've been really like trying to find the person. And yeah, I think it was like a month and a half ago. I was like, okay, I'm going to really research this now. Like I'm going to find this person. And I came across quite a few people who are working in this field. And somehow I felt so just like immediately resonant with your energy. Like I feel like I don't know, there's something in it. Like also it's like the images you share, the colors you use, the way you describe yourself. It's like I was just like, okay, this is the woman. So yeah. It's wild to hear that you have that kind of spirit connection with the author of that book, because that was really, yeah, my dive into it, as well as the workshop I did.
Yeah. And now it still feels resonant, it still feels relevant, but I find that we're at a stage in our relationship where something has been so deeply established that it's almost like we're not related by blood in this incarnation, Walter and I, but it's like having an ancestor on the other side of the veil, and they've maybe not taught you everything they know, but they've imparted a lot of wisdom and insight and life force energy into your journey. And now your journey has become the offering which nourishes them. And I really feel like we're in a space of sovereign exchange and study in the work and continually learning from each other. And he pops in every once in a while, fairly frequently, but in a way of observation, and every once in a while he'll share something with me, but a lot of it, I think it just feels like a big feast at this point. It just feels like we're just feasting on the revelations that are present now, and how he really set the stage for that to occur. Yeah, it's amazing. His work is amazing. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious, Sarah, like we're talking about spirit babies. So like the spirits of unborn children, right? Who are like wanting to be incarnated. Or I don't know, actually, I feel like keeping it quite open, because I feel like you're going to hop in and be like, wow. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious, like what could be some of the things that a spirit baby would want to communicate?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll say that personally, I define a spirit baby as a spirit or soul who has either come before or is yet to come. So an ancestor, somebody who is connected to our soul's journey through time, and may have insight, messages, information that can support us in all spheres of our journey, be it career, relationship, yes, absolutely, like fertility, and helping us to amplify or reconnect with our creation power. And every conversation, it's like every reading I do or every conversation I have is definitely linked into and in sync with a universal blueprint. And so in the universality, there are these patterns, there are these ley lines, there's this grid, there's a web with all these jewels. And there are actually so many of them that even in the universality, there's so much texture and there's so much context, there's so much information to be gleaned. And then what I find to simultaneously be true is like every reading is unique, completely expansive unto itself. Like you cannot make this stuff up. You cannot, there's not one reading that I do that I'm not like, what? Like that is phenomenal, amazing. Like I had no idea that's how that worked. Or like, I didn't know that could be a thing. Or I would never personally describe something like that in that way, because that's just not my personality, my context and information isn't what's driving the conversation. I may be navigating here and there, but a lot of it is just emptiness, becoming empty and allowing ourselves to be filled, you could say, by the spirit, so that they can speak through your nervous system and not be hindered. Is a real art. That is a real art, because our imaginations are sparkly and wild, and and we have our own preconceptions and limiting beliefs. So it requires a lot of getting out of the way, and that's just to say lightly, to say it's a little laissez-faire, just get out of the way. But it's really something to widen our stance in our own system and field, that we can be so wide and so empty and allow information from the other side to come through. And so I just think that the process itself is quite alchemical and very simple, and that's what I appreciate about it. And I like just speaking to the architecture of like, well, there's like this universality, this web, there's all these like power points and vortices and ways that energy links and connects and expands and contracts through time and space. So as I do more like just thousands and thousands of readings, it's like, oh, okay, I understand the framework we're in pretty well, but then every reading is so unique. And so the messages that come through can have anything to do with, it can have there's really no limit to what it can bring up, which maybe feels a little like, ooh, so what do you, because people come in, they're like nervous. They're like, what are you going to say? And I'm like, well, what I find, instead of going into the nitty gritties, I would just say like, what we often discover is something that feels familiar, something that really actually helps and supports to ease the nervous system and really provide like a clearer pathway forward of understanding, like what is the spiritual homework present right now? Like what are the puzzle pieces, the things that we can learn about or know about right now that can assist movement in a particular direction or sphere of our lives. Again, oftentimes communicating with spirit babies, that's in relation to our creation power and bringing children to this earth and becoming families or mothers. But it can also be other things too, because sometimes I work with families who've had loss or miscarriage or abortions, or they're actually coming to decisions inside of themselves that they don't want to be mothers or they don't want to have children. And it's pretty relevant across the board. But it can be everything from sometimes I'll share this part. Sometimes when I get onto a reading, especially with somebody who's done, let's say, a lot of like spiritual pursuit in their lives, or like really like has done some of like the study or the embodiment work to understand a wider sense of themselves, it's not unusual. It's not a given, but it's not unusual that when I start the reading, their soul will want to introduce themselves in a way that exists beyond time and space. And so they'll show me visions or visceral experiences in my own body of like who they've been and what some of like the puzzle pieces are, the context is that's brought them to this moment, and what will be most illuminating for them now in their inquiry, whether it's like, will I have a baby, or where's my partner, or, it's all. I think I'll complete this by saying I always start my reading with a guided meditation. And while I invite the person I'm working with to be an active participant in that meditation, with their permission, simultaneously, I'm gathering all of this information. So before actually knowing much about a person or a couple or a family, I just want to actually work with them beyond words and beyond information, and just gather all of the, like, just kind of comb through the energetic field so I can understand from that perspective where we are in time and space. And then we start dialoguing and debriefing and going from there. And literally, it's like no reading is the same. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And I just suddenly was like,
Yeah.
that completely went. The question, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so, it feels really profound what you shared, and what really struck me was like this feeling of familiarity, something that comes up. And yeah, that's really been my experience of doing past life work, connecting with spirit. And I'm not so skilled in doing that work myself, so I tend to like have readings, because I feel like my way of feeling and sensing spirit, it's not as refined. You know what I mean? And my mind likes to have more. I really enjoy that.
More to work with.
Yeah. But yeah, what I've really experienced is just this feeling of like, deep familiarity and being seen and feeling felt, and just feeling this like yes that feels really good to like bathe in.
Yeah, that's it.
So I'm wondering, like, how can women like me, or like, anyone who's really wanting to connect with their spirit baby, or the spirits that are kind of in their field, like, how can we do that? What's a way that could make that easier?
Yeah. I think that is a beautiful question. And anytime I'm teaching a workshop, or this question always comes up, it's a really good one. And what I love playing with it by first saying, just a reminder to myself, to all of us, that you're never not communicating. You are never not communicating with your guides, your guardians, your gatekeepers, your higher self, the higher selves of others, your spirit babies, your ancestors. You're never not communicating. Truly, we're never alone in this. But what is true for most of us is that because that wasn't modeled to us, because that wasn't mirrored to us, because that wasn't validated in us, because there's often no outlet for that dance, that conversation, even to have those experiences, or to see others having those experiences in our day-to-day lives, it feels very specialized or abstract, or like reserved for a few who have the gift. And I find that couldn't be further from the truth. But there is a truth to it, simply because of how much we've forgotten. And beautifully so, I think that forgetting is part of the dance that we do here. It's it's the irony of like, we forget to remember, we remember to forget. We kind of dance in this way. And so just reminding us all, like, you're never not communicating. It's just that your conscious awareness isn't cognitively, right, aware that it's happening. You're not hearing it with your physical ears. You're not speaking to the spirits like you are, like we are right now. And yet it's like learning a new language, or learning a language that feels familiar, or like you get little glimpses into every once in a while, or like a few little words, but it's just the journey of becoming, or the journey of remembering that this is always happening, so how can I open myself to it? And I think unless you really choose to, most often you won't, right? Unless there's a moment of divine intervention, which was a bit of what I experienced. It was like, I think fortunately heaven gives us these bumper rails. And so if it's really, if it's really important to your journey, there's no, you're not going to miss it. Divine intervention is a beautiful gift, but at the same time, all of us are absolutely capable of this, and we all are experiencing it. And for some of us, it comes from the outside in these moments of divine intervention, but for others, it's maybe it begins with the curiosity, or maybe it begins with meeting someone or reading a book or taking a course or learning about something and realizing like, wait, hold on, there's this thing. Wait, can I do that? Like, how do we do that? How do you do that? It's a beautiful inquiry, right? And it leads you to deeper understanding. So asking the question or living the question is a big part of the journey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gosh, it's such a big one. And I love what you said about, it's almost like sometimes clairvoyance or like, all the voyance, all these it can feel almost like exclusive in a way, like there's something exclusive about it. And it's been, I feel like I'm really early on my journey with all of that. I'm definitely very intuitive, but something that I've kind of experienced, and it's also been spoken about in some of my trainings, is like there can sometimes be like a glamorization of one kind of like clairvoyance, so for anyone who doesn't know what that means, it's like seeing, having vision, accessing your intuition through vision. Mm-hmm. And there are so many different ways that we can access our intuition. But the vision is something that's, I don't know, it's definitely more celebrated or like acknowledged, I think, like for people who are kind of not doing psychic work. But I feel really comforted by just, it's like speaking in my mind to my baby, to my children, and just asking them, and sometimes I'm just like, gotta help me find your father, like you want to be here.
You can help too.
Totally.
Absolutely. And that's what you're doing. You're saying, well, I have these senses, I have these experiences every once in a while. Let's just have these little heart-to-heart conversations. In that you're simply allowing it to become more conscious in doing that. Just in doing that, you're welcoming the conversation. You're allowing yourself to participate in a conversation that maybe in your mind, you're like, I don't know if this is real or not. I don't know if you hear me or not, but they do. And so the fact that you're just having the conversation, allowing yourself to not need to know or understand how it works or have it look a certain sparkly way, or even for it to live in the mystery a bit, but you're just leaning toward it. And you can't get there without doing that, in my opinion. Because otherwise we're told we live in a 5-sensory world and that's it. So clairvoyance is clear seeing. It's not that fancy. It's just being willing to look at life in a deeper way and make peace with what you find in that reflection. And that in and of itself is the conversation. And it is, using extra sensory perceptions. You're actually saying, okay, there aren't just 5 senses, there's more. And I just think being really gentle with ourselves, we don't have to know what the more is, or maybe this person connects in this way, this person connects in that way. Good news is, like, you have your own journey. So you are going to connect the way that will feel most organic to you. So maybe it's that you just have this heightened sense of smell, or you're a dreamer, or you feel very empathic, or you're sensitive to other people's energies. Like all of that is clairvoyance. But so it's so easy to disregard in a world that has forgotten so much of this way of being. But it can be remembered. It absolutely can be remembered. And I think we just need a lot of love. We just need to love ourselves through the journeys that we're on. And that in and of itself opens up so much. Because I mean, the opposite of that is fear, feeling constricted around it, or feeling like you said, it's so exclusive and we're isolated outside of that. And it's what other people do, but not us. And so I think making peace with that and going like, okay, well, yeah, I'm not going to give readings to other people, but I definitely have senses about things, or I definitely have premonitions here and there. And it's just kind of tending to the journey as it unveils itself to you, and trying not to compare. And yeah, working with people that you trust and love and you feel have good energy. It can be really helpful to be in the presence of somebody who's integrated this. It's like they give you, it's like it's very natural that then they give you like a stepping stool to stand on. And I found in my early journey that when I was trying to make sense of things, again, every once in a while, I'd be sent an angel, and I was getting this massage from this woman who was doing these past life regression readings simultaneously as she massages you. And I remember I was laying on it's like, it's insane. But I was laying on the table, and I look up and I knew that because she was there, I could see there were these literally, there were violet cherubs, like energy babies with wings, just like they paint them in the Vatican. I'm not kidding. I was like, oh my God, it's real. Like there were these cherubs flying over my body, and they were, again, they didn't have that flesh to them, but they were just like you see the cherubs with the angels. These are chubby cheeks and these like round faces and little bodies, and just like, and I knew it. I was like, because she's here, I feel safe enough to see beyond this limited view and have access to a realm, a being, a dimension, an experience that would otherwise scare me. Yeah, and these are things you'll never forget, right?
Yeah. My gosh. Yeah, it's that really lands. It's like I'm suddenly remembering these experiences where either like, yeah, I've had an experience when I was with someone else, or they've had an experience because they were with me in certain things. It's like certain frequencies that we're attuned to.
Yes.
We can be like, yeah, it's like
just modeling
frequency pillars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pointing toward the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was taking a pranic healing workshop, and the woman had all the participants stand in this workshop space that was a very open canvas. All the walls were white. And she said, it's really important that the space is white. And she said, okay, half of the group go stand along the wall diagonally to one another, give each other space. And then your partner needs to stand like 5 to 6 feet back. And then she had us each with our partner. She was like, now look at the person standing along the wall and tell me what color their aura is. And I was just like, oh, I don't do this. I don't see auras, no, I don't see anything. And I remember she came over to me, stood very close to me. And in her like pretty young masculine voice, she was like, look at his aura. And I was like, my consciousness shattered because I was a little bit like, and the moment she did that, I was like, my eyes just zoomed in again, and it was like, look. And I was like, oh my God. Like I saw it. And it wasn't just like a nice little color here or there. It was like, oh my gosh. It was the whole enchilada. It was like, okay, there's gray here. This organ needs more key energy. Okay, this comes from this comes from his mother. This is his, the child that he didn't birth. This is like, it was like so much information though. And I actually remember feeling my consciousness pop in and pop out. And I know that her like her energy standing next to me, that was like, you can see it. It was just like, it's real, and I know it because I can see it and I can share that with you. And it was just like, but it's a lot to see. Clear seeing, it's a lot to see, and there's a reason why the veils are there too.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to really humbly respect that. There, it's like, it's okay if you're not seeing unicorns like every day at the grocery store. It's helpful, actually. It's hard to
Yeah.
be.
Oh my God. I've heard scary things that people see in grocery stores.
Oh, they're really interesting. Like, not the same as a hospital, but grocery stores are just high traffic, high spirit traffic.
Yeah, it's not where it's at.
I don't know. It isn't. It isn't. It depends if you're in the mood for it. Or like, I've had some really potent experiences in grocery stores, some of which have like defined absolutely important moments in my life, but others where I'm like, I just can't do this right now. I'm so overstimulated. Like, I'm trying to figure out what banana to buy.
Like, where's the kale?
Now that I know where that is and how to cook with it. Yeah.
For some reason, I feel, yeah, called to ask you like about, yeah, like women who don't know if they want to be mothers.
Yeah.
And who aren't sure about that. Like, I'm curious to hear if you have any words around that, or maybe like even an experience you've had connected with a woman who wasn't sure.
Absolutely. You know, it's the beauty of having a human journey is that we're given the gift of free will.
Yeah.
And then what is simultaneously true is that, as per our soul's contract in choosing this incarnation and the elements of this incarnation, some things are simply just written, and yet we always have free will.
Mm-hmm.
So this dance between fate and destiny, you know, it some women who I do readings with in this capacity, they'll say, like, some will say, I've had this experience when I was 14, and somebody told me in front of my whole family I'd never be able to have children. And I can't tell you how relieved and happy I felt in that moment, not even understanding what was happening. And I've had other women be like, at 7, when my mother had an abortion because my grandmother forced her to, and I saw the pain of that experience, I remember telling myself in that moment I would never have children. So it's like, how we make these decisions, when we make these decisions, why we make these decisions, how consciously we make them, even how unconsciously we make them, it kind of does and doesn't matter. But there's always a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's always something familiar that we can find or trace our way back to. And in my opinion, just as I experienced, like, there's no waste in nature. There's no getting this wrong. And yet sometimes when we go into the capsule of that story and we start looking at the layers and making space between them, we can start to understand gently, again, like, where and how does this notion or desire rest in our consciousness? Is it actually our truth and connection to our highest path forward? Has something else been written, and are we just wanting to avert our gaze? Are we in sync and in alignment with the divine plan and our purpose for incarnating in this lineage? And like, this is literally why we chose this lineage, and like, this is our deepest truth. It's different for everybody. But I think discovering this, or having a chance to be witnessed and met and seen and heard in this conversation, because it is a big one, that we often find ourselves having, whether we like it or not, at family occasions, or, you know, weddings, or in choosing a partner. Like, for some people, it's a very confronting part of their journey, having to disclose or share or withhold that information because maybe they themselves do and don't understand it to varying degrees. So I think just to be met, just to give space, just to be affirmed, or hear maybe some other perspectives to kind of spiritually chew on, so you can really integrate your journey and make that decision. I don't want to say consciously, because it's not that simple, but like, make it in a way that is maybe more holistic or integrative. like integrating the many parts of self and the many ways our lives are woven and weaving itself, and just like, and at the end of the day, it's like, when you make that choice, or if you make that choice, do you find peace in it? Does that feel harmonious, or does that leave you revving or feeling anxious or feeling like something might get missed? Or, is that really what settles your system?
Mm-hmm.
These are just moments of getting really honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really profound.
Yeah, it's such a big question. And it's amazing that women have the choice. That's an honor as well, to devote our life to something different.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not unusual. It wouldn't be unusual, not because I believe every woman who comes to this planet is like must or is destined to have babies, but I think that it's not unusual that we uncover or discover painful memories in that exploration. And like I said, because there's no waste in nature, it can be part of the harmonious design that there's a painful memory that keeps us withholding our creation power, and that keeps us like a little more reserved when it comes to the desire for having a child. And it's not here nor there. Like, I don't see it as good, bad, right, or wrong, but it's I don't think these incarnations, or even any moment or perspective we may have, is like an isolated experience. I find that everything we think, feel, and are is connected to a deeper, wider echo that travels through time and space.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like saying there's no accidents, there's no coincidences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another thing I'm curious about, I feel like I read a little bit about this probably in the Spirit Baby Communication book. Have you found that sometimes when, like, if a woman is desiring to get pregnant and there's some kind of reason why she's not, have you found that like communicating with the spirit baby can be supportive in revealing some parts of her life that, or some parts of her like inner experiencing of life need to be tweaked in some way to create the right environment for that spirit baby to come into her body?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is the work. This is what I'm most passionate about, for sure. And so much so that it can range from anything of just and without getting too heady and complex, it can be anything from like a vow or an agreement that was made about the timing.
About what?
The timing.
With the baby or with someone else, or
Yeah, what I share with people is that it takes a minimum of 3 destiny threads, 3 souls. It takes a minimum of 3 souls to come together and form a spirit baby contract. And then often that's like the more inner circle, inner sanctum of the contract. And yet what's not unusual is that there's like hundreds of souls that are connected to the contract through time and space, either in their bodies, out of their bodies, other babies that will incarnate, other souls that will incarnate within like, a decade's time of that soul. I mean, it's very intricate.
when you say there's 3, sorry, I'm just curious. You say there's 3 main,
a minimum of 3.
a minimum of 3. So is that typically like the father, the mother,
The egg, the sperm, and the soul of the child.
Wow, the egg and the sperm. They're like, this one's mine. So there is no race with the sperm. Well, there's a race, but it's just like it's a sham.
Yeah.
It's all a sham.
Both. It's very real and it's a complete sham.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. I just needed to understand.
No, it's beautiful.
Rewind.
Wait, what? Yeah, because some contracts, like for example, two souls, women, best friends, past lives at the river with the daughter of one of the women who, you're there together. The stream becomes a little violent. The mother of the daughter falls into the stream, has a horrible accident, dies. That woman takes on mothering the child for the rest of that life. In the next life, you're struggling to get pregnant. You're happily married. You want the baby. You've done everything you can. All the tests say you should be able to get pregnant, but you can't. You have 5 losses. You decide, even against your own desire, to look into surrogacy, and you meet this woman and part of that process, and she feels familiar, and she births you a daughter and gives you back the daughter that you didn't get to raise. It's like one way it can look.
Wow. So the surrogate was the other woman
who was on a soul level made a contract, a vow, like I will bring you two back together again. I will guard her soul. I will midwife her soul. I will be the steward of her soul, but there will come a time where I will give her back to you.
Wow. Okay.
So that's the echo through time. It's like a loop that wants to complete.
Yeah. And so, okay, I remember we were talking about like when a woman can't get pregnant because there's like something that there's something that needs to happen in her life. And so the spirit baby is like, hold on, I need you to like evolve a little bit more, or like this thing needs to change. So I think I got that that's like quite a big part of the readings and the work that you do.
Yeah. 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 I've even worked with 50-year-olds who've been told like it's not ethical to continue with IVF or this fertility process. It's not possible. It's not going to happen. And within 8 months, pregnant with twins. Like we worked together for 8 months.
50-year-olds.
I mean, I've seen a lot come together.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, I've also heard things that say, like there is no age. You can't have a baby. Like if you want to have a baby, if you're meant to have a baby, you can have a baby. Which is kind of amazing. And also it's like for me quite scary navigating it all. Honestly, it's like, okay, there's this perspective of like chill. It'll happen when it happens. And then, there's everything else, which is like, no, if you want to have children, you got to decide, prioritize it. Don't prioritize your career over it. All of it. So,
well, everything is as it seems. Nothing is as it seems, and both are true.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think with that example, with this older couple, they really needed to repair their relationship with spiritual principles and their ability to integrate those spiritual principles into the embodiment, and that did inevitably reset their consciousness such that they could connect with the consciousness of the children that wanted to come through. And I won't get into the details. It's very complex. It's extremely gorgeous. Oh. But all the while we were navigating together. We were navigating that aspect of the journey amidst, and this is my favorite part, like in connection to conversations and big choices they had to make with their doctors. And just, it was just bringing all of those worlds together and finding that moment in space and time where it all just clicked, and it did. And even months before, I was told like exactly when and exactly how, and even weeks leading up to it, she's like, it's not going to happen. Even my doctor said this lining isn't this, and da 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 da. And I was like, no, it's happening. It's done. It's already done. It's written. We've already done the spiritual work. It's already happened in light. We're just allowing it to happen in the material. No matter what information you get, I'm telling you, you will conceive at this time. And she did. And wow. Yeah, that's like a whole nother podcast and conversation, but this is very real.
Yeah. Wow, so fascinating. Oh my gosh, I'm sure you could write a book. I mean, have you written a book?
I have like 4 templates, and as soon as I get a little extra time in my world, I will absolutely be writing books.
That amazing. Yeah, in full support of that.
Thank you.
So, how can people work with you? Where can people find you? What are you doing in the world, Sarah? Apart from talking to spirit babies.
Well, I mean, the best way to learn more about my work is visit spiritbabycommunication.com. It's just, I have online courses. I have a monthly group reading that I provide through a monthly membership. I have one-on-one readings. Everything can be found there. And yeah, I think, uh, yeah, what I'm most passionate about is applying this to people's journeys, in the childbearing years. But I've met a lot of women who are like, I love what you do. I don't want to get pregnant, or I don't feel that motherhood is for me, or I've already had my children in this life. But I find that, harnessing the potency of our creation power as women, as individuals alive on the planet at this time, is a gift to all of us and can be very applicable to all of us. So I do have a program called Rebirth for people who are just on a spiritual quest or wanting to open more deeply to their gifts in their life. And yeah, I'm just as passionate about that as anything else, because I too am in a situation where I've had my children and I have learned so much from the process, but I find that I'm continually hungry for growth and integration. And so even my birth that happened 17 years ago, I had big, as I mentioned so deeply on this podcast, it's like I tucked that away for a long time. And, but what started to happen is like, okay, but 7 years later, I started to shed and come into deeper understanding. 9 years later, I had a really big rebirth process. Like 10 years later, something completed, and I understood that experience to a whole new level. It's like the echo of that through time has continued to find me in certain experiences, moments, relationships, places, spaces. And whoa, I don't want to say I'm just now understanding it. That's not exactly true, but my ability to harness and really direct and utilize this gift is really coming into a culmination. And ironically, in some ways, I still feel like I'm just at the beginning, because I'm like, wait, what? Like, this is how it works? Wait, what? This is how it works? Like, wait, nobody told me that, and so it's just getting really interesting right now.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh, I love you, Sarah. You're so
Love
great.
you.
And I'm
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to see what you're going to create.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me, and excited to connect.
Yay.